It's 7:30 in the evening across India. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll bring you the day's big stories from across India and the world. And with me today from Washington, D.C. is my colleague, Nick Harper. Hello, Nick.
Good morning, Tanvi. It's 10 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. and 4 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, Armenia and Azerbaijan agree a fragile truce, but will it hold? And China prepares to welcome Russia's leader as the UN General Assembly prepares to discuss the war in Ukraine. But first, the headlines.
Russian president expects to achieve peace in Karabakh as Azerbaijan's defense ministry finally confirms ceasefire. Karabakh Armenians to meet with Azeri authorities on September 21st. Canada's opposition asks Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to provide evidence of India's link in the killing of a pro-Khalistan figure. Passage of Women's Reservation Bill will mark the start of a new era, says India's Home Minister Amit Shah in the lower house. More than 2,000 refugees, including 1,000 children from Nagorno-Karabakh region, have been given temporary shelter at the main base camp by Russian peacekeepers. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that the injured have been given proper treatment and are also being offered temporary accommodation and hot meals.
Peacekeepers are working very actively with all the sides involved in this conflict. They do everything to protect civilians. There are more than 2,000 civilians in our main base camp. More than 1,000 of them are children. I repeat, we are in very close contact with all sides of the conflict. With authorities in Yerevan, Stepnakert and Baku, I hope we will be able to reach a de-escalation and a peaceful solution.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, in a television address on Wednesday, said that Armenia did not prepare the draft of a ceasefire agreement between Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan separatists.
We hope that by taking such a step, brokering a ceasefire between Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan, the peacekeeping contingent of the Russian Federation will fully fulfill its responsibilities, in connection with which, as you know, we also had some reservations before.
Now, it was Russian peacekeepers who helped broker a ceasefire between ethnic Armenians and Azeri troops. The Armenian separatists in Karabakh surrendered and agreed to disarm completely after an Azeri attack on the enclave claimed 27 lives earlier in the day. Azerbaijan also released a video showing Armenian troops leaving the territory. Internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, Karabakh is mainly populated by ethnic Armenians. Karabakh Armenians will also be meeting the Azeri authorities on September 21st to discuss their future.
An agreement was reached on the suspension of local anti-terrorist measures. It was ensured that the processes were carried out in coordination with the Russian peacekeeping contingent.
Meanwhile, Russian peacekeepers in the region urged both sides to cease hostilities as the United States and the European Union condemned Azerbaijan's actions. DD India's Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed a fragile and temporary truce in the months-long conflict over this small disputed region. Azerbaijan launched what it called anti-terrorist activities in the area on Tuesday, following the death of 6 Azerbaijanis, including police officers. 24 hours after Baku launched its operation, dozens were killed and hundreds injured. United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Azerbaijan's actions were worsening the already dire humanitarian situation on the ground. Now, Russian peacekeepers in the area have brokered a deal between ethnic Armenian troops and the Azerbaijani advance. This region, which is recognized internationally as part of Azerbaijan, is about the size of the state of Goa, and while Baku claims its territory, the population there is a majority Armenian. The situation in the area has been described as a humanitarian disaster, with aid convoys finally being allowed into the region on Monday. Azerbaijan regained control of parts of Nagorno-Karabakh in 2020 after a war with its western neighbour, and tensions have been simmering ever since. The fear now for the international community is that a further escalation could lead to another full-scale war between the two countries, the third since 1994. While a fragile peace has been found for now, two things remain unresolved: the desperate humanitarian situation on the ground and finding a long-term diplomatic solution to prevent yet another conflict in this already war-torn region. Alex Cadier in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
Russian President Vladimir Putin will visit China in October after he met Chinese Foreign Minister in Moscow today. My colleague Nick Harper is in Washington, D.C. He gives us more on this and also on what is happening in the 78th UNGA session that is underway in New York. Let's go over to Nick now. Nick, over to you.
Thanks, Tanvi. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday confirmed that he will visit China in October. Putin was hosting Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, where he formally accepted Chinese President Xi Jinping's invitation to travel to China. Now, this would be Putin's first international visit after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant against him over the deportation of children from Ukraine, an allegation that the Kremlin denies.
It was my pleasure to accept the invitation by the President of the People's Republic of China to visit China in October this year, within a large-scale event promoting the Chairman Xi Jinping's idea, One Belt, One Road. It has become an international brand.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is all set to take part in a special session on Ukraine at the United Nations Security Council on Wednesday. DD India's William Denslow gives us an update on what to expect in New York today.
Well, a common thread that we heard from both US President Joe Biden and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky was an appeal to the international community that this is a war that not only impacts Ukraine, but impacts the international community. President Biden saying explicitly to the world that no other nation would tolerate being carved up, and if it can happen to Ukraine, who could potentially be next? Zelensky picked up on that thread during his address here at UN headquarters, saying that Russia invades another country every decade. He said that it's imperative for the international community to stand with Ukraine. He says that Russia has weaponized a number of things, including things like energy and food. Items, of course, that impact nations throughout the entirety of the globe. That is why at this UN Security Council meeting, it'll be very interesting to hear whether that rhetoric we heard on Tuesday has had a resounding impact on those nations that perhaps have been more neutral, that have sat on the fence so far, or whether at this Security Council we'll hear from those nations urging Russia and Ukraine to come together to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict. We've heard from Mihailo Podolak, a senior advisor for Ukraine's president, who's taken to social media saying that this UN Security Council meeting is a chance to synchronize watches, to get on the same page as to how to proceed forward. He said that there are signs that even neutral countries that are using Russia as a gas station for cheap energy are even starting to consider them as a bad ally. So very interesting to hear what we hear from potentially Sergei Lavrov as well. Of course, we haven't heard directly from a Russian representative speaking at the UN so far this week.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's president and the Israeli Prime Minister met on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. The meeting took place at the United Nations headquarters in New York. In a statement, Israel's Prime Minister's office said the meeting was friendly, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has pledged to continue to provide humanitarian assistance to Ukraine. Zelensky had previously urged Israel to provide more open support to Kiev.
My colleague Nick Harper joining us from Washington, D.C. Now, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has blamed Russia at the United Nations General Assembly for the repercussions caused by its war in Ukraine. Germany has recently announced to give around $428 million as part of the new aid package to Ukraine. But Kiev is also expecting a supply of missiles from Berlin.
My thoughts are with the Ukrainians who are fighting for their lives and their freedom, for independence and their country's territorial integrity, in order to safeguard those very principles to which we all committed ourselves in the UN Charter. But Russia's war of aggression has caused immense suffering not just in Ukraine. People around the world are suffering as a result of inflation, growing debts, the scarcity of fertilizers, hunger and increasing poverty. Precisely because this war is having unbearable consequences around the world, it is right and proper that the world is involved in the quest of peace.
During the United Nations General Assembly, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva warned UN leaders of the prospect of a coup in Guatemala. Last week, Guatemala's top prosecutor's office targeted President-elect Bernardo Arevalo, which was seen as an act to rig recent elections results. They raided the election office and opened the sealed electoral boxes, revealing Arevalo as the front-runner, after which he suspects he and his party might get sacked. This has brought condemnation from the international community, especially the US, who has shown concerns towards the threat to democracy.
Na Guatemala, há risco de golpe.
In Guatemala, there is a risk of a coup, which would impede the inauguration of the winter of democratic elections. We will continue to criticize any attempt to divide the world into zones of influence and to reissue the Cold War. The UN Security Council is progressively losing its credibility. This fragility stems in particular from the actions of its permanent members who wage unauthorized wars in pursuit of territorial expansion or government change.
Right after Brazil's accusations, Guatemalan president denied the coup allegations and said that the next president will be elected constitutionally.
I will hand the power to the person who was elected by the sovereign majority of people of Guatemala on 14th of January. When my constitutional terms ends, the electoral event was surrounded by unnecessary foreign interference. Our democracy may not be perfect, but it has allowed us to have a principle of alternation in power and respect towards our constitution. In a continent where some presidents fight to remain in power, clinging to their position, allowing re-elections, even if goes against their constitution, in Guatemala, the principle of alternation is compiled with chivalry every 4 years.
The issue of coup in at least 7 African countries was also raised at the UNGA. Expressing concern, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu said that he's making continuous efforts to negotiate with Niger's junta. Tinubu is also the chairman of the West African bloc, ECOWAS.
Regarding Niger, we are negotiating with the military leaders. As chairman of ECOWAS, I seek to help establish democratic governance in a manner that addresses the political economy challenges confronting that nation, including violent extremists who seek to foment instability in our region. I extend a hand of friendship to all of you who may genuinely support this mission for a democratic governance in that nation.
Senegal, too, expressed grave concern over multiple coup attempts across the continent of Africa.
In Africa, the resurgence of coup d'etat remains a subject of grave concern. Senegal reiterates its firm condemnation of any type of anti-constitutional government change.
So these were the updates coming from the 78th UNGA session, and Nick Harper was also getting us the latest from Washington, D.C. Moving on now. Amid opposition from the West, ties between Iran and Russia have achieved a new level. Russia's Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said during his visit to Tehran that Iran and Russia are focusing on military cooperation and are aiming at an entire range of planned activities, despite opposition from the United States and its Western allies.
The high dynamics of the meeting confirmed the general mood for further strengthening of the strategic partnership in the defense sector and military cooperation. We are aiming at implementing the entire range of planned activities despite opposition from the United States and its Western allies. Sanctions pressure on Russia and Iran shows its futility, while Russian-Iranian interaction is reaching a new level. We are also ready for our joint actions to strengthen stability and security in the Middle East.
You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. Canada's Prime Minister asked by opposition to provide evidence to support his claims of Indian involvement in the killing of a pro-Khalistani figure. An Indian Navy ship Nirikshak has successfully conducted the vital mixed gas diving training sessions in Sri Lanka.
Stops, where information shapes our reality. One app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. Next news from India. Well, the Indian Parliament has passed the historic Constitution 128th Amendment Bill 2023. The Women's Reservation Bill was passed by 454 votes in the lower house of Parliament. The bill provides reservation to 33% seats for women in the lower house, Legislative Assembly of every state, and of the National Capital Territory of Delhi. And joining us on this story is our correspondent Vikas Sarthi. He joins us from the Indian Parliament in New Delhi. Vikas, would you call the passage of the Women's Reservation Bill in the Lok Sabha history in the making?
Right, Tanvi, it's a history in making. Right behind me in this new Parliament building, the first bill which will be passed by the Lok Sabha is related to the women reservation, the women reservation bill, and it provides 33% reservation in Lok Sabha, the lower house, and the state legislative assemblies. We saw the discussion started in the morning. It went on till half an hour ago. Most of the member of parliaments were in favor of this bill, and some of them said that they have been waiting for several years for this particular bill to come before them. So the voting has already been done. As you just mentioned, that around 454 MPs have voted in favor of the bill, and 2 members of parliaments have opposed it. Though still some amendments have been suggested by the member of parliament, and they have sought voting on those particular amendments. That exercise is going on right now, and once these suggestions or these you can say the amendments are voted, and it is decided that they have not get any kind of support from the opposition MPs, the bill will formally be passed. Though you can say it is very clear that bill has already given huge majority, which was expected earlier. In fact, in the morning when we listened the MPs of opposition parties as well, most of them were in the favor of the bill, though they have some reservations on some issues, some minor issues, but by and large, in principle, they were agree with this bill, and you can see that it is reflected in the voting, which has just completed a few minutes before, and right now the speaker is seeking a kind of vote on the amendments proposed by a few member of MPs, member of parliaments.
Yeah, Vikas, would you say that the bill's passage in the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of Indian Parliament, is going to be a foregone conclusion?
Well, Tanvi, going by today's result, it doesn't seem that there will be much resistance in the Rajya Sabha as well, though political equations are a little different from the Lok Sabha. The kind of majority government has in the Lok Sabha is huge, and apart from it, we are just witnessing that the opposition parties are also voting in favor of this particular bill. But in Rajya Sabha, the political equations are little different. There may be some more suggestions from the opposition MPs, some more proposed amendments. We will have to wait for that, what kind of amendments or what kind of changes will be sought by the opposition MPs. But it seems that the passage through Rajya Sabha will also not be very difficult. What we are discussing in the Lok Sabha as of now, it was a smooth passage, 454 votes out of 456. It's a huge majority.
Yes, so history in the making. Let's sum it here. September 19th, like Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, will be remembered in India's constitutional history. And September 20th now, when this Women's Reservation Bill is being passed. Thank you very much, Vikas Sarthi, for joining us in DD India Global. So supporting the bill, India's Home Minister Amit Shah stated that women empowerment is not a political agenda and the bill will be in favor of all women parliamentarians.
कुछ पार्टी के लिए महिला सशक्तिकरण एक पॉलिटिकल एजेंडा हो सकता है, कुछ पार्टियों के लिए महिला सशक्तिकरण, माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, एक राजनीतिक मुद्दा हो सकता है। कुछ पार्टियों के लिए महिला सशक्तिकरण का नारा ये चुनाव जीतने का एक हथियार हो सकता है, परंतु मेरी पार्टी और मेरे नेता नरेंद्र मोदी जी के लिए महिला सशक्तिकरण राजनीतिक मुद्दा नहीं है।
Earlier today, India's Law Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal moved the Constitution 128th Amendment Bill 2023, said that his ruling party has already adopted 33% reservation for women.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने अपने राष्ट्रीय कार्यकारिणी की बैठक जो वडोदरा में हुई, उसमें सबसे पहले संशोधन करके महिलाओं को सशक्त करें पार्टी में, इसके लिए 33% महिलाओं से पद भरे जाएंगे, ऐसा निर्णय किया। भाजपा लगातार लोकसभा और राज्यसभा में 33% सीटें आरक्षित करने के लिए निरंतर प्रयास करती रही, और जब अटल जी की सरकार आई तो बिल लेकर के भी आई। कई बार सर्वसम्मति की बैठकें बुलाई सभी दलों की, कई बार प्रयास अटल जी ने किए, और उपलब्ध रिकॉर्ड के अनुसार 1996 में 11वीं लोकसभा के दौरान एसटी देवेगौड़ा के समय भी ये पहली बार प्रस्तुत हुआ। उसके बाद ये कमेटी में चला गया और कमेटी ने रिपोर्ट दी। रिपोर्ट देने के बाद लोकसभा भंग हो गई तो वो बिल भी समाप्त हो गया।
Now, on the third day of the special session of Indian Parliament being held in its new building, the proceedings in the upper house began with discussion on India's successful lunar mission Chandrayaan-3. The leader of opposition, Piyush Goyal, lauded India's space program and compared it to the costly missions by other nations. Adjourned for the day, the upper house will reconvene tomorrow at 11 in the morning, Indian Standard Time. Next, let's talk about the brewing India-Canada diplomatic tussle. India has issued travel advisory for its nationals and students living in Canada amid this escalating diplomatic row between the two countries. The advisory has been issued over growing anti-India activities, politically condoned hate crimes, quote-unquote, in Canada. It said that Indian diplomats and Indians opposing anti-India agenda in Canada have been threatened. Indians have been advised to avoid traveling to regions that have seen hate crimes against Indians. Meanwhile, the Indian High Commission and consulates will continue to remain in contact with Canadian officials to ensure the safety and well-being of the Indian community. Canada's opposition Conservative Party has asked Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to provide evidence to support his claims that India was potentially involved in the killing of pro-Khalistani figure Hardeep Singh Nijjar. India's Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has also briefed Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the matter in Canada. India has rejected Trudeau's claim of New Delhi's possible link with Nijjar's killing in June this year. The allegation has led to a diplomatic row between India and Canada, with the two countries expelling each other's diplomats.
I think we need to see more facts. The Prime Minister hasn't provided any facts. He provided a statement. We need to have the evidence that that allowed the Prime Minister to come to the conclusions he made yesterday.
A top Indian Army general on Wednesday said that defence ties between India and Canada were unaffected by the ongoing diplomatic row. Moreover, he also confirmed the visit of the Canadian chief in India for the Indo-Pacific Army Chiefs Conference.
It doesn't impact us. The Canadian chief is coming in here. His delegation is coming in here. And like in case of even when we look at relationships with some neighbors of ours, where we may have had a standoff, but we continue to engage them at all levels, be it the military level and at the diplomatic level. And I'm referring directly to China here. So our diplomatic efforts, as also our military efforts with even Canada, continue to be there. And we, as part of the IPAM, they will form an important partner in this journey.
Now, Indian Navy ship Nirikshak has successfully conducted the vital mixed gas diving training sessions in Sri Lanka. The diving training was a part of the India-Sri Lanka DiveX 2023 exercise. Last week, the vessel arrived at Sri Lanka's Trincomalee port. The vessel is well equipped with 2 6-man recompression chambers and a 3-man diving bell. The vessel has previously visited Sri Lanka in September 2019 and March 2022 for a similar exercise. So that's all in this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at DD India Live. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.